Since the release of the Quiet on Set docuseries, what's become clear to me is there is an unfinished conversation about child stardom. And there's also more profit that could be made off of making expose documentaries. And I thought, who better to continue that unfinished conversation than Demi Lovato, one of the OG former Disney stars who, you know, rose to fame at such a young age. She is directing her very first film, and it's a Hulu documentary titled Child Star.
Oh, she's directing this. I thought she was
it's her directorial debut.
Is she also the... this comes out tonight or tomorrow?
Comes out tomorrow on Hulu.
So is she... So she's not just the director, she's also the main figurehead of it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes sense.
We have a description here. Child Star explores the highs and lows of growing up in the spotlight through the lens of some of the world's most famous former child stars. This film will mark Demi Lovato's directorial debut, with Nicola Marsh co-directing, and it comes out tomorrow, as we're recording this at least. Let's take a look at the trailer before we discuss.
I also asked everyone, put cats in the chat.
Please do. I need to see them.
Here we go.
Thank you so much for talking.
I'm glad you.
We finally get to do this. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
Stop. Why do I know this dance still?
Everyone wanted to make it in the industry at a young age. I was 7 or 8 years old.
First time I was in front of a professional camera, I was 16 months old.
That's just how I grew up. You were sort of born into it. It changed my life.
I had so much fun. Oh my God. You know, we were dating each other. I secretly was bummed. I never got to get slime.
I knew it. I was a huge fan of Nickelodeon, like, for that reason.
It was the first time I had ever seen sparkling water. I was like, these rich people with their bubbly water.
I'm still like that.
Intense pressures.
I was struggling. My first account ran away with my biggest earnings up to that point.
There's nothing left for me at the end of the day.
The popular girls signed a suicide petition saying that I should kill myself.
How old were you when you were first given substances? 10?
I immediately went right to drugs and alcohol.
When we first got on the phone, you were like, I was on your show. I don't even remember something that I was on.
There was a sense of walking on eggshells.
I'm genuinely so sorry.
There definitely is not a manual on how to navigate this industry at such a young age.
And it's a whole new world of social media. It just scares me to hear that these kids are making tens of millions of dollars. You know, there have to be protections put in place.
If you had to do everything from the very start all over again, is it worth it?
I wouldn't end up where I am had I not made all the choices leading up to this point. But
it came at a price.
So, I'm skeptical.
Okay.
Is that fair?
In what way?
I'm skeptical of the intentions behind a project like this.
So you just have a more cynical view of this, that it's just a cash grab because it's a very relevant topic right now.
Not necessarily even that it's a cash grab, but it's salacious, obviously. There's this weirdly upbeat music over conversations about children doing drugs and getting
I mean, it's supposed
abused.
to be, it seems like the tone of the trailer, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a second trailer as well that's set to a darker tone. This one looks like it's supposed to be focused on the healing aspect of it, coming through the other side of what happened and being okay.
I suppose.
Which, honestly, if we understand media, that doesn't sell in the same way that this bad thing happened to me, this bad thing happened to me, this is what it was.
And here's who did it. Like, let's name names. That's what was so important about the Quiet on Set docuseries, is they actually named names and revealed information to the public that was previously shrouded in, you know, industry loyalties, right? Brian Peck. No one knew who that guy was. Like, no one talked about that guy. And now people know who he is and what he did. And all of the people who supported him, including big name stars who supported him after he abused Drake Bell. I don't see any of that coming out of a project like this. It's a little bit I have to be honest, it's a little bit self-indulgent.
It seems to me like I saw in the chat somebody use the term controlled opposition. Yes.
Yes.
It feels like we'll reveal just enough to satiate the angry masses, but not enough to outrage everyone to the point where they would demand meaningful change. And that might not even be necessary, because you can demand all the meaningful change you want. The industry will only ever do just enough to get by their PR campaigns and allow them to continue to operate their industry as unencumbered as possible. Now, one of the things that they were talking about in here is, like, she's talking about in this interview about the workload that she had at such a young age and the traumatic things that they had to do to prepare for role. Or
I think you mean Allison Stoner.
Allison Stoner, yes, not Demi Lovato. And all that is horrible. But when you look at things at the end of the day, it's a career path that they chose, and choosing to act in roles that involve traumatic scenes, right? A fair person would say that the studios should do everything in their power to look out for their child actors. But the studio's only going to do as much as they have to without getting some type of bad publicity. And they're constantly being fed these people who are desperate for fame. And they're always going to take advantage of it. It's the nature of the industry. Yeah,
especially the parents who obviously made many errors in judgment, if not just straight out like using their kids for supplemental income.
And this is only one path forward for that now. Those types of parents now create TikTok channels or YouTube channels for their kids.
I think that's...
And there's even less protections for them there.
Right. The dawn of social media fame being pushed on children is kind of to blame for the resurgence of this combo.
And if this is Hulu, that means it's Disney.
Yeah. Yeah. It is the definition of controlled opposition.
Yeah.
Disney is putting out a documentary about
Look at us, the
how
good guys.
shittily their own former child stars were treated. I don't think we're going to be getting the full truth here. But I was surprised to see some of these faces. Drew Barrymore, Raven Simone, Jojo Siwa, they're all being interviewed in this documentary by Demi Lovato about...
I saw Allison Stoner in there too.
Yeah, Allison Stoner as well, who was in Camp Rock for Disney with Demi Lovato. And I recognized Allison Stoner because back in 2021, she made a video that got a big response titled "The Toddler to Trainwreck Industrial Complex," which is basically a way of saying that she was traumatized by being raised in the spotlight to the point where by the time she reached 17, 18 years old, she had to check herself into rehab for the amount of mental turmoil that it caused her, and she never rose to the same level of success or prominence after that.
I mean, that's another big problem for it is like, if you come in there as a child actor, then you're constantly under pressure to continue to do better and outdo yourself. And when that doesn't happen, that can take a great toll on
and
your mental
outdo
state.
yourself by conjuring up emotions of trauma for the acceptance and reward of adults who don't care about you. She was basically recounting one of her earliest auditions where she went in at 6 years old to record an audition, basically reenacting getting R-worded on camera and ending the scene in the fetal position crying. And she was just like, all right, next. Like, next one, come into the room to reenact the same thing. The fact that that would be allowed by her parent, by the adults at whatever studio that was, is just unconscionable. And here's where we get back to the controlled opposition thing. Throughout this entire video about the toddler to train wreck pipeline and how she narrowly avoided it, she is only coming up with solutions that are fake solutions. Put mental health professionals on film sets. What? What good is that going to do? Right?
It doesn't do anything.
They're hired by the studio.
Again, that's no different than your intimacy coordinator. They're there as a branch of HR.
They're hired by the studio. Their interests are with the profit of the studio, with the executives at the studio, not you.
It's like a cop having to go to mandatory therapy. They're never going to feel 100% safe telling a therapist that was appointed by the department what they're actually thinking and feeling, because, you know, as sworn as they may be to protect, you know, the safety of the individual, how can you really trust someone that was basically required by your department, by your job?
So she's, you know, talking a big talk about changing the narrative about former child stars and like changing the industry systemically.
Was the one that you were listening to earlier, was that the Allison Stoner one? Okay.
Yeah.
It was literally just buzzwords.
So many buzzwords.
And it doesn't actually get to the problem. But here's the thing. And I know this is blackpilling. I don't think that there is a solution for something like this.
No.
I know this is blackpilling, but there is no kinder, gentler, more safe Hollywood. Not with the amount of money that's on the line every day, not with the turmoil that is required to get productions made. It is an unbelievably cutthroat industry, not just for adults, but for children as well. Everyone's got their own self-interest. Everyone's got money on the line. Nobody is going to honestly be looking out for somebody else. Even in this respect, even if these actors feel a kinship to one another, one day or another, they, or I guess the next generation of who they were when they were kids, will end up sitting next to each other waiting to audition, and then you're competing once again.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But what that tells me is that you need to take it upon yourself to safeguard your mental health, your well-being, and your safety. It is not incumbent upon Hollywood to do that, because it's never going to happen. It's the same type of utopian thinking that people apply towards other aspects of the world. Stop asking the industry to change. Start asking yourself, what am I going to do to keep myself safe while working in this business?
Yeah, I think an individual can't hold an institution accountable, but an institution can hold individuals accountable. Yeah, so this approach is just totally misguided, unfortunately. And she has slightly changed her tune since that 2021 video, sounding a little bit more aggressive this time. She has debuted a podcast series called Dear Hollywood, and this was her description for it. She said, "It's time to expose Hollywood. Child stardom is a unique cultural phenomenon with a notoriously dark shadow. Young talents skyrocket to success only to repeat horror stories of addiction, decimated fortune, and suicide. What is behind the toddler to train wreck pipeline? Why hasn't it stopped? How are you connected to it at home in the audience?"
You know who else doesn't seem to get much of the blame in this? Maybe it's different and I'm just not catching it. Shouldn't the unions be held more accountable?
That's a good point that I have not heard anyone talk about.
Isn't the point of the union to protect these actors? And they love talking about being in the union. That like the whole time they were on strike, SAG, they were like proud, SAG after proud of my union, blah blah blah. I got my own feelings.
I mean, should children have their own separate acting union? She pointed out in 2021 that there were still 17 states that had no laws about child actors. So maybe that's
probably due to the fact that there's no tax benefits to filming there, so nothing gets made there anyways.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, but you can change laws, you can change like company policy. That is not going to make people in the entertainment industry any less morally corrupt than they have always been from the start. They were better at hiding it, but I mean it from the start. One of the most disturbing examples of this is Judy Garland. And that was back when everything seemed like it was like totally wholesome from the outside. The only thing that's changed is they're showing their hand with like cuties, for instance.
Yeah.
Now it's just available for you to see.
And that, like, that's not even the best representation because that wasn't even an American production, right? So there's plenty of horrific shit that happens here in America.
Sure. I mean, let's even look at reality stars like JoJo Siwa. Why is she so mentally disturbed now? It couldn't possibly be because she was put on camera from the age of like 8 to get emotionally terrorized by an obese dance instructor who was throwing furniture at her. Couldn't possibly be it.
No. I just see a lot of utopian thoughts from most people who believe that they can, and I guess I can give some credit to the idealism of it. If I was to take them at their word,
they have good intentions.
If I was to take them at their word and not take the cynical approach that this is just a way to bleed cash from a system that hurt them, and believe that they actually have great intentions, I can applaud the idealism. But if I was to give them advice, I would say practically stop looking for the system to change and start looking for a way to safeguard yourself, your family, and those closest to you, because you're going to be able to protect yourself a lot better if you get proactive than you ever will be if you get proactive about changing the industry, because you can't always move a mountain like that.
Or if you really want to change an industry, get institutional power. Probably in the union. That's a really good point that I don't know why anyone hasn't brought that up.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.